Hello and good afternoon, Year 9. Firstly, I just want to start this afternoon's assembly by saying thank you and well done, because actually you're the year group who has spent most time off-site, so effectively since we went into lockdown at the end of March. And the positivity and the resilience that you have exhibited over the course of the last few months has been absolutely phenomenal. So I just wanted to take the opportunity on behalf of all of your teachers and all of the staff at Caulfields to say a big well done and thank you. Can I just remind you as well to turn your mic and camera off, and if you know of any of your friends who for whatever reason have missed this afternoon's assembly, if you can remind them please that I will email it to them and their parents later on this afternoon. So, return to school dates for all students. I wanted to take this opportunity of reminding you when you are due in school. So on the 3rd and 4th of September, the Thursday and the Friday, there will be training days for staff. And then students will be expected in school on Monday the 7th of September. That's just Year 9 and Year 12. And then all year groups, and this includes you as new Year 10 students, will be expected to attend school on Tuesday the 8th of September. It will be a normal school day in terms of time with an extended tutor period in the morning. And that will mean that normal lessons will start from period 3, just to enable us to have some assembly time with you and also to sort out things such as lockers and timetables. Your tutor group details, your form rooms and your timetables, again, will all be emailed to you on the 3rd of September. So, as you are aware from the government guidance, and probably you've seen and heard lots of things on the news recently, there are for schools going to be a lot of changes in September. And that's because actually the government's intention and our intention is to have all of our students back into school full time from that first day in September. So as a school, our objectives are, number one, that we need and will assure you that we will keep all members of the Caulfield school community and their families safe.
I can't even hear her.
I'm just going to pause for a minute. Can you turn your mic off, please? Thank you. We also need to follow the government guidance. We need to ensure that our high expectations are maintained to enable everyone in school, in their lessons, to learn to the max in a supportive learning environment. So, firstly, travelling to and from school, we would advise where possible for students to walk or cycle to school if you can. However, if you have to travel with others outside of your family in the same car, then the government guidance states that you need to leave your window open, sit side by side and wear a face mask. If you have to use public transport on the way to and from school, then as of a few weeks ago, the government guidance is that you must wear a face mask. And again, if you have to use school transport, that's if you're coming from Merley or Sturminster Marshall, for example, again, you must ensure that you wear a face mask from that first day back in September. Now, our advice, if you have to wear a face mask, is that where you can buy a reusable or a washable face mask, we would advocate that actually you try to do that because it's more environmentally friendly. If you are wearing a washable, reusable face mask on the way to school, you will need to bring 2 with you. And when you take off the first mask that you have worn on the way to school, you need to ensure that you remove it by holding onto the ties at the side, you roll it up and you put it in a plastic bag, which will be kept inside your school bag in your locker throughout the day. And then your second clean mask will need to be worn for the return journey. If you decide that you will be wearing a disposable mask, then we will provide for you as you come off the bus or before you enter the school building, a closed lidded bin. And again, you just need to be really careful about how you remove that mask, ensuring that you don't touch the front. You roll it up and you secure it by the ties before placing it in the relevant lidded bin. You may also have heard that the government have been referring to something such called bubbles. Now, what that means is that we will be operating from September in year group bubbles. And that means that each year group will be allocated to a specific zone inside the school. So therefore, year 10 will be counted as a bubble, year 9 will be a bubble, year 11, and the sixth form will be counted as one bubble. And the rationale behind this is that it means that students will not be allowed to mix to prevent or minimise the risk of cross-infection from one year group to the next. And what this means is that there will need to be in each zone a separate catering area. All of your or most of your lessons will be taught in the rooms in that specific zone. You will have different entrances, exits, toilets and social spaces. So you need to ensure that you understand from day one which entrances you are going to be coming into the school in. They will be clearly signposted for you because you will not be allowed to come into any other areas of the school. So what does this look like for you as new year 10s in September? I've taken a couple of photographs for you, but firstly, it will be the normal start time. So we expect everyone to be punctual for school, ideally on site by about 8:30 in the morning. And as new year 10 students, you will only be allowed to come in one of either two ways. Every year group has a front entrance and a rear entrance. Your front entrance is the entrance at the bottom of English. So just outside where the buses arrive in the car park, that is the year 10 entrance. And as I said, there will be signs on the door for you, but you will not be allowed to come into the school in any other way unless you come in the back. And you will need to come in up the rear car park towards English, so past the old English block, towards the English corridors, but then you turn left and there's an entrance there that brings you in the middle of the science corridor, and that is the rear entrance for year 10 students. So just to confirm, you can only come in one of these two ways. You will then need to exit by the same two doors. So the key thing is really that you need to just make sure that you follow the signs. Now, because at the end of the day, clearly everyone potentially will be leaving at around the same time, what we've decided that we need to do is to stagger the end times very slightly. So what that means for you as year 10 students is that on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, your finish time will be 3:05. And on a Thursday and Friday, it will be 2:45. So the other year groups will be leaving at slightly different times. So year 9 will be leaving slightly earlier, and year 11 and the sixth form will be leaving slightly later than you. Okay, so that's just to make sure that you don't come into contact with any of the other year groups as you leave the school building. So your year 10 zone, we're going to call it the blue zone. It's going to be a light blue zone. And I will show you a map in a minute, and it's color coded blue for you. And one of the key differences in September is that each year group, that's year 9, 10 and 11, in addition to wearing your normal house lanyards, will need to wear a coloured year badge. And that's going to be really important in terms of enabling staff to be able to quickly identify which year group you are in to ensure that you are in the correct zone. Because as I said before, you will not be allowed to go into any of the other zones of the school and mix with other students. So you will notice when you come into school in September that there will be some barriers to separate your zone from others. There are a couple of areas within the school where the zones start and end in a very small area or tight area. So that means we're going to have to zone them off. But most of your lessons will happen in the humanities classrooms. So as year 10 students, you will be based upstairs above the English faculty. And that's where the humanities classrooms are at the moment. Most of your lessons will take place in those rooms. And what it will mean is that the teachers will need to move to you. So you will be moving around the humanities classrooms, but your teachers from different subject areas will be coming to you as opposed to you going to them. However, you will know that for some of your different subject areas, you need to be in a specialist room. So for example, it might be a science lab, it might be PE, it might be media. And actually, we need to make sure that you have access to those specialist rooms. So what will happen in those cases is you'll be timetabled in a room in your zone, and your teacher from your specialist subject area will come and fetch you. They will then escort you to the specialist room. And the reason for that is because actually your specialist room might mean that you have to walk through another zone, and it might even be in another zone, and you are not allowed in that zone unless you are properly escorted by a member of staff, because you will have to maintain social distancing. The other thing that's going to be different in September is that we won't be able to operate house assemblies in the exact same way that we have done previously, because clearly we have different students from different year groups all in the hall at the same time. So because the house structure is really, really important to us, we will still be having house assemblies, but they will just be conducted via Teams by the heads of house, and we will have them every other week. That means then on alternate weeks, we will have year group assemblies, and because you will be in a bubble, that means that we can have you all in the main hall at the same time. Now, your catering facilities within your zone are going to be in the pod, which you may have spotted in the quad outside of the pastoral office, but it's not recently been in use, and it's a really brilliant piece of equipment in terms of being able to offer excellent catering, and we're going to open that up for you so that you can, if you so wish, purchase hot and cold meals and snacks during break and lunchtime. So that's going to be your specialist catering area. Now, if it's wet, then clearly we will allocate you classrooms so that you have an inside social space in your zone if the weather's not very nice. And your outside social spaces, that should say, will be the quad outside the pastoral office, and we're just in the process of trying to get hold of some additional benches for you. The other side of science, so if you can just look at that quad, the pod in the quad picture, if you go through the science corridor to the other side, there's another outside area, and that is also going to be one of your social spaces. And you will also have a section of the field just for year 10 students. Your toilets clearly would just need to be the humanities toilets. And as I've said lots of times, you must stay in your own zone to minimise the risk of cross-infection. So you may not be able to see this map, but I will send this as an email to you later and you can look at it at your leisure. But essentially, the year 10 area is the light blue area. And at the bottom, that's the humanities area. And then downstairs in the blue bit kind of above on the map, that's the outside area with the quad, basically. So you can clearly see how we've had to split the school into different sections for each of the year groups. Now, you have been really brilliant at bringing your own equipment to lessons and making sure that you are fully prepared for your learning year 9. But in September, it's going to be even more important that you make sure that you have every single piece of equipment that you need for every single one of your lessons. And that's because we will not be allowed to lend you equipment, and you will not be allowed to borrow equipment off other students. And I've included there a suggested equipment list, which is our basic list that you will have had, and it's on the website anyway. And you need to ensure that you bring at least everything that's on that equipment list, please. And in addition to this, when you come back in September, all of you will be issued with a mini whiteboard. And that's because if you can imagine, your teacher won't be allowed to circulate your room in the way that they would have done beforehand. So you being able to actually ask for feedback or to show your teacher your work on a mini whiteboard is going to be a really effective way of making sure that you can progress in your lessons. So make sure that you are fully prepared. All rooms and toilets will be cleaned regularly. I think it's important that I say that just to reassure you and your parents that actually hygiene and cleaning will be our #1 priority. And for the specialist rooms, they will be cleaned at the start and end of every lesson, because if you think about what I just said about you being escorted to specialist rooms, that means that a specialist room will be used by students in other year groups. So we need to make sure that they are kept meticulously clean. And so we will be using anti-bac wipes at the start and end of every single lesson to ensure that that happens. When you come into the school building, when you go into all of your lessons, when you come out of all of your lessons, you will be expected to sanitize your hands. And I would pause and just say at this point that actually it's a really good idea if you bring your own hand sanitizer, because one, you won't necessarily have to queue up to sanitize your hands, and secondly, you can use it when you want. However, again, it's really important to remember that frequent hand washing for at least 20 seconds is very, very effective. And if you need to use a tissue, you need to catch the virus potentially, you need to bin it and then kill it. So get rid of that tissue, don't just carry it around with you. And if you need to cough or sneeze, then make sure you do it into the crook of your arm, like this, as opposed to sneezing into your hands or coughing into your hands, because clearly then if you have got the virus, you're going to be spreading it around. And the thing that probably most people find most challenging is try to avoid touching your face. Now, the rules on social distancing have changed a bit recently, and from September, the aim is to keep at least 1 metre away from other students. So you should aim where possible to keep away by at least 1 metre from other students. However, this will not be possible in all lessons. And that is because if you can imagine that if you're in a class of 28 students, we cannot fit you all in if everyone is kept 1 metre apart from each other. And that is one of the reasons why you are grouped as a bubble and you are not interacting with other year groups to actually minimise that potential risk of infection. However, it is really important that you keep 2 metres away from any member of staff or adult in the building, and they will keep that distance from you. And the reason for it being 2 metres between staff and students and staff is because actually staff are going to be the members of the community who are moving around in and out of all of the different bubbles and zones. So therefore, you need to keep your distance away from them. Oops. You've heard this from me before. I'm going to remind you, because actually this is a crucial piece of information. If you develop a new or persistent cough, raised temperature, change or loss of smell or taste, you must stay at home. You are not under any circumstances to come into school. You have to self-isolate for 7 days, but what you do need to do first is to get your parents to book a test for you. And if that test result comes back negative for the coronavirus, then you can come back into school. So you would need to let your student support manager know, and you can return to school before the 7 days are up. If a member of your household develops any of those symptoms, again, you need to self-isolate for 14 days. However, if the member of your household then comes back with a negative test result, you can return to school before those 14 days are up. If any student develops any of those symptoms in school, each of the zones will have an allocated medical room, and you will be placed in it, and your parents will be contacted immediately for you to be collected from school. Just before I finish, it's worth reminding you, I think, about the high expectations that we have of each other in the Caulfield School community. The expectation from September is that everyone needs to follow instructions. There are going to be a number of different changes, and actually it's a really crucial time for us all to pull together as a community and make sure that we're doing the right thing. The uniform expectations will be as normal in September, so we expect every single one of you to come in looking really smart. That includes wearing your house lanyard and your year badges. Once you've been allocated your year badges, they will form part of the uniform. But it's actually, again, essential that we protect and support each other. We totally understand that there will be many of you who might be feeling a bit anxious or nervous about coming back, and it's really important that you know that we're here to support you so that you feel safe, so that you feel secure, and that you can maximise your learning and learn to the max in your lessons. We expect for people to follow the Caulfield's way, which as a year group you've been brilliant at anyway, And also to act as positive role models, because you won't be the youngest students in the school anymore. We have some lovely year nines coming up in September, and although you might just see them in the distance, actually it's still really important that you act as positive role models to them and other students actually in your year group. So next steps. Tomorrow, your parents will be receiving a detailed email from Mr. Sankey, reminding you of some of the information that I've included in this assembly. I am going to send this to you as an email, and also I'm going to put it on the website as a YouTube video and send it to your parents too. Make sure that you check your start times. You're coming in on the 8th of September at the normal time, about 8:30. Check your correct entrance and your form room. The form room information will be sent out with Mr. Sankey's letter tomorrow, and check your timetables, which will be emailed to you before the start of term. And make sure when you come back that you are prepared to learn to the max in all of your lessons. And finally, from me, Year 9, we do hope that you have a lovely summer. If you have any questions, if there's anything that I've said in this assembly and you're thinking, well, I didn't quite understand what Mrs. Jones meant there, please do email either me, your head of house, or your student support manager. Have a rest over the summer. Make sure that you spend time with the people that are important to you. Stay safe, and we are really, really looking forward to seeing you in September. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.